This is Monty in the Morning, the show Phoenix Magazine readers voted #1 talk radio show in Arizona.
#1 during your morning commute.
#1 whenever news breaks during your day.
And #1 whenever and wherever you want to talk sports.
Now it's time for Monty in the Morning.
Hey, yo, man, how the heck are you? It is the Monty Show. Happy Wednesday. Thank God this month is almost over. Yeah, it's already April 27, 2022. That's what was just going through my mind when my decayed brain stopped. A lot to get to today. We got to talk about controversial comments. Zach Wilson, BYU alum, said some, I don't know, is blasphemy the right word? Blasphemed about the LDS Church. Some BYU folks are up in arms over it. We'll talk about that. Do you work out at home or do you prefer to work out at the gym? This craziness over cheating in sports, like how much cheating is enough cheating or too much cheating or isn't really cheating at all? And you'd be cheating yourself if you did not shop our affiliate links right now as you watch or listen to this show. Look below. All our links are there. The best T-shirt I own is a Carhartt T-shirt. It is in the affiliate links below. Just all kinds of good stuff. Everybody asked about the One Bars that we eat. The link to our protein bar is also in the, although you don't eat One Bars anymore because whatever, you like girl bars.
Right.
But yeah, the link to our bars is in the description below, amongst other things. And without further ado, why don't we get talking Utah Jazz basketball? Because we got a significant update on Donovan Mitchell yesterday. The MRI on his left hamstring came back negative, which is to say there's no damage there. So he is hoping to rehab that hamstring and be ready for Thursday night. It is essentially 3 full days off. If you look at all day Tuesday off, all day Wednesday off, all day Thursday off for a game on Thursday night, Donovan Mitchell basically has 72 hours to try and get himself right. That's a significant amount of time. Now, obviously, it's not just the hamstring that is of concern. He is reportedly, according to Woj, dealing with both quads having significant issues in those quads. And I guess the real question is, can the Utah Jazz, Jake, win if Donovan Mitchell is anything less than 100%?
I don't think so. I think that up until this point, he's been, he's played the best basketball that he can play, I think. I mean, it hasn't lived up to his full standard, but I think he's been giving his full effort and doing everything that he can do. But without him, I mean, I don't think I don't think that you have a chance at winning. Like this last game, yesterday on the show, we talked about this last game about how, I think Don had 9 points in the last game and how this was a really rough showing for the entire team. But most nights, Donovan Mitchell is going to give you 30 points a night. And I would remind you guys that earlier in the year, he could have left a game after really rolling his ankle, something terrible, but he didn't do that. He stayed in the game. And this, once again, was against Dallas when Rudy wasn't playing. So I think if the question is he going to play? Yeah, I feel pretty darn confident that Donovan Mitchell is going to play. Whether that's, his full slate of minutes or if he's going to be limited, I'm not sure. But I definitely think he's going to play. And I think that they need every bit of his performance that they can get because, obviously with the season being on the line now, you're in a position where you have to win 2 in a row. And I think there's nothing like that in sports. When you're on the brink of your season being over, you got to have your best performance by everybody, and that includes Quinn Snyder. This team has to make the right plays at the right times, and I think we talk about decision making a lot on this show with Don and with several other players, but I also think decision making for Quinn. How willing are you to take Rudy out if Don is not 100%? Right? Like if Don shows up and he clearly is only like, let's say 60, 70%, and you're not getting his full ability, well, that's going to change your willingness to play small ball or do this or do that. So that's what's going to be really interesting to see. But they absolutely need everything that they can get from Donovan Mitchell if they have any chance to win this game. Because Luka's going to play. You know that Luka's good to go. You know that the rest of that team is good to go. So they absolutely need Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I think need is unquestioned. My question more is if Don is not his normal self, which he's had a terrible series, let's be honest. It's not like Donovan Mitchell's been playing at an all-world Mikal Bridges type level. But Don has struggled mightily in this series, as have all of his Jazz teammates. So it's not like he's been spectacular. But my question more is, and I think the thing that a lot of Jazz fans have been talking about, is if Donovan Mitchell is 60%, can they win this game? And that brings me to, the ultimate question here is, how important is Donovan Mitchell to the success of the Utah Jazz? And I would tell you he's vital. He is capable, and I still maintain I would not be surprised to see Donovan Mitchell come out and drop a 50-piece tomorrow night. Like, that would not surprise me at all. I mean, Don is a proud guy. Mm-hmm. You do not have to ask him, how he is feeling or how he believes he's played or performed. He knows he hasn't performed to that level. But I think part of the conversation around Donovan Mitchell is his real value to the Jazz in the short term in this series and the long term going through next summer. And I would tell you that I value Donovan Mitchell very highly. I don't think it's optional to have Donovan Mitchell on this team. My passionate opinion is he is your best player. He has got superstar upside. There is no doubt about that. And what happens in a short window like a playoff series where you do not perform well, and you don't have, look at John Morant last night. John Morant has been pretty well off his game in this series against Minnesota. But in the fourth quarter, he has a huge moment where he dunks on Malik Beasley, hits a game, essentially a game-saving three, and then the game-winning layup. It doesn't take much for guys of John Morant and Donovan Mitchell's ilk to get going and get back to that superstar level. Donovan Mitchell has to do that because, frankly, he has let the Jazz down in this series. And the thing that is becoming very clear about Don, and maybe this is a Jazz problem, I don't know, but he's injury-prone now. There's no other way to spin this. He is injury prone, whether it's the ankles, now the hamstring and the quads and the this and the that. Donovan Mitchell has to become a tougher player because now this absence or the lack of performance out of Donovan, I'm not willing to say that it's because he's injured. Donovan Mitchell simply has not put the ball in the hole, period. I don't care if you're injured, you're out there, so you're well enough to play, and the expectation has to remain high. So, I guess my question to you is, how much do you value Don?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think Don is the guy that you should be building around and that you should keep. I think, when you look at games played over the course of his career, I mean, this has been right up there as far as games played as a pretty normal season for him. Like, you look at, again, if you just look at his career, rookie season, he plays 79 games. Next season, he plays 77. 19-20, he plays 69. 2021 is where he missed the most time. He only played 53 games. This year, he's right back up, into the 60s at 67 games. So I think, he is playing. The conversation isn't, hey, is he missing too many games? Right? Like it was with Book a couple years ago, or some of these other guys. I think the conversation with Don is, how often is he actually 100% when he's out there? That's the thing. I mean, we've seen a big change in his game. I remember, and you can go and find it in the YouTube archive here. We talked about how Donovan Mitchell's game has changed, meaning he's not trying to posterize people anymore. He's not trying to play really high at the rim because his body couldn't sustain that. You're seeing much more of a jump shooter, layup package type guy now in Donovan Mitchell. The issue this year has been that he's just not shooting the ball real well. I mean, you look at his field goal percentage. This is a pretty average year for him, 44% from the field. And then you look at his three ball percentage. This has been a decent year for him, at 35-ish%. So that's why I say, I think it only takes, like you were saying, it only takes a couple of plays for people to flip the script and say, oh, well, he saved them from a round one exit and they moved on to the second round and Donovan Mitchell's now a hero. But for those of us who watch him every single day, in every single game he plays, we see the little things. We see the limping around. We see the laying on the floor. We see the, as you said yesterday on the show, the bending over in the tunnel, So I don't know. Is he injury prone? Not to the point where he's missing time, but I think definitely to the point where he never is 100% on the floor. And that's a problem because you need him to be 100%. He is the guy that is the answer when the Dallas Mavericks go on a run. And he hasn't been that answer to this point in this series.
Well, I simply maintain what I've said. And I said yesterday, I think Donovan Mitchell's a drama queen. I think he wants people to know he's hurt. I think he wants people to know he's tough and he's fighting through it. And I want people to know that his performance hasn't been good enough. I mean, and I think that's the hard part. It's cool that you want people to know you're hurt, but you got to come out and perform. It doesn't matter if you're hurt, you're on the floor.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're in a situation now with the Utah Jazz where they have to win Game 6 or the season's over.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter how your quad feels. It doesn't matter how your ankle feels. Nobody gives a damn that you were hurt. A year from now in the summer, 5 years from now when we look back at your legacy, Donovan Mitchell, nobody's going to remember your quad hurt. Nobody's going to remember your ankle hurt because, frankly, nobody cares. Did you put the ball in the hole? Did you win the games? In 5 years, Donovan Mitchell, I'll ask you a direct question. Will you have won a championship? Because I got news for you, kid. That's all that matters in this game.
Yes.
All that matters is winning championships. All that matters is, are you growing and developing? And I will also say Donovan Mitchell is exponentially, significantly much better as a player this year than he was last year. But now, here we are in the playoffs again, and Don's limping around. Mm-hmm. Here we are in the playoffs again, and the Jazz are on the precipice of a significant disappointment. And so the conversation has to be had. What is the real value of Donovan Mitchell to this franchise? Now, again, I'm going to go back. I was talking to a Jazz guy yesterday who was talking about that Donovan Mitchell and his teammates were devastated and humbled by what happened the other night in Dallas. And, the other thing I thought was interesting yesterday, I was talking to my Jazz guy, and he was saying that it is ridiculous, quote unquote ridiculous, that people are saying, and he was pointing, and I asked him if he was talking about David Locke, and he didn't answer the question, but he said it was ridiculous to question the effort of this team. Mm-hmm. He said, do you want to question if guys are capable? That's legitimate. That's fair. Questioning whether or not this team is trying hard or making an effort is ridiculous. And I agree with that. We talked about this on the show yesterday. There is not a lack of effort on this team.
No, they're busting their ass on the floor, and it's purely a lack of athleticism that makes it so they're not able to, make the play that they need to make, or they turn it over in this situation or that situation because of the lack of athleticism. And I think that's what's so tough. Like this group of guys, I think this particular group of guys, this core group, has been endeared to Jazz fans. I think Jazz fans really like this group. A little bit less now that Joe Ingles isn't here anymore, but I think when Joe was here and the rest of these guys were here, the Jazz fan base really liked this group because they were a hardworking group, because they busted their ass every night on the floor, and you knew what you were getting. That's what I think this team was known as, as far as the fans were concerned. And I think for people saying that they're not trying hard or they're not giving their level best, I would agree with your Jazz guy. I think that's a ridiculous thing to say, but I don't think it's ridiculous to talk about, the things we talk about all the time: roster construction, the position, and what you're asking guys like Bojan Bogdanovic to do. Like, those are things that are legitimate conversations, and it's really unfortunate that seemingly the Jazz are gonna go out in the first round. They can still win the series, definitely. That's still within them. It's still a possibility. But I don't know how you bounce back from the ass kicking that was laid out in Game 5. I'm not sure what that looks like.
I don't know that you bounce back. I think what you need to see tomorrow night at the Viv is, one, a packed house, very clearly, and I think you're going to get that. Mm-hmm. I think number two is you have to see a much more spirited performance. And the thing that I think you can't have is the total collapse. What I saw in Dallas the other night was the Jazz had their spirit broken. That's what happened.
Yes.
They didn't quit. They didn't, not try. But they knew they weren't winning that game, I think, midway through the second quarter. I think they had a pretty good idea they could not win that game. And, as far as who should have been in the game and who should have not been in the game, I mean, candies and nuts. It's the playoffs. What are you saving guys for at this point? Right? Like, I don't know what you would be saving guys for. My frustration is that we forget how good Donovan Mitchell is. And I think, part of this conversation is you got to ask yourself, do you take Donovan Mitchell for granted? Because I think there's a big part of this where when you talk about Don and you talk about his impact on this team, I think a lot of Jazz fans take him for granted. And I think we spend far too much time in the Rudy versus Don conversation because I don't think it's a conversation at all. And I know that pisses off the Rudy Gobert supporters on this show, and there's a lot of you, but there's not an NBA general manager. I was talking to an agent yesterday, and he was laughing about Donovan Mitchell leaving the Jazz. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, do you want to know how good Rudy Gobert is or is not? Well, you're going to find out when Donovan Mitchell plays for the Knicks. Like, there's a lot of people around this league who are convinced that Donovan Mitchell is going to be a New York Knick a year from now, which would, to me, that would be tragic.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. I have heard repeatedly, that the Jazz guys that I talk to have told me repeatedly, hey, we're building around this guy. Him and Ryan Smith are in lockstep. They're on the same page. They've had honest, open conversations. There's nothing that says you should build around Rudy Gobert. The question, I think the only question that you have right now is Donovan Mitchell that guy that you can build your franchise on?
What does that look like? What is that when we say to you, like when we talk about franchise players, is that because I don't think franchise player means now that they can carry you to a championship on your own. We're past those days now.
Yes.
It's not realistic to say like the LeBron Cleveland days where he just took them to the finals. That's over with now. The league is just too good now. So is a franchise player just a guy that can lead you in scoring? What do you think that looks like?
I think when you talk about is Donovan Mitchell a franchise player, can he be your best player on a team that wins a championship? Mm-hmm. Yes, he can. I don't have any doubt about that. I have no. When you look at the best teams in the NBA, is Jason Tatum capable of being the best player on a team that wins a championship? Well, I think right now there's not a soul in the world who would watch the way that they've played this year and watch JT develop into the player that he's become and say that he can't be the best player on a championship team.
Yeah.
You look at guys like even teams that are out now, like look at Kevin Durant. He's been the best player by far on multiple championship teams.
Yeah.
I look at like LeBron James is the perfect example of this conversation. Can LeBron James be the best player on a team that wins a championship? My answer to that right now is I'd have to say no. I don't think he can. I don't think he's capable of that anymore, which is why Anthony Davis's absence from the Lakers is so crippling.
Yeah.
I look at my team, the Chicago Bulls. They don't have a championship caliber player. They don't have a guy that you can build a franchise on. And I'm talking about DeMar DeRozan and I'm talking about Zach LaVine because those are the only two on that roster that matter.
Yeah.
If you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, can the Sixers build their franchise around Joel Embiid? Because I don't even think it's a question that James Harden's not a championship level player. Mm-hmm. I don't know about Joel Embiid. I have real questions about that. I know you can build around Giannis because that guy's getting better every time he bounces a basketball. It seems like he does something better.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, now he's got a ring. Look at Mikal Bridges last night. That's a team. And this is where I think we as basketball fans get a little emotional. I look at the performance out of the Phoenix Suns last night, and it was spectacular. What Mikal Bridges did, and Cam Johnson secondarily, what Mikal Bridges did last night was nothing short of stellar, spectacular, fantastic. Like, what Mikal Bridges did last night was more impactful than what John Morant did for Memphis last night. Mm-hmm. You look at the New Orleans Pelicans, with all of the momentum in this series, on plays where Mikal Bridges contested a shot, New Orleans was 1 of 14.
That's crazy.
1 of 14 on shots contested by Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
And then you look at the fact he drops a career-high 31 points, hitting threes, cutting to the basket, dunking, running the break. Like, that's a spectacular performance. I got news for you. he's not good enough to carry a team to a championship. That guy's Devin Booker.
Mm-hmm.
Is he good enough, Mikal Bridges, to carry a team to a series win over New Orleans? Absolutely. But it's New Orleans. So when we bring this back to Donovan Mitchell, is Donovan Mitchell here and now, right now, today, good enough to singularly carry the Jazz to a win over a Dallas team? Yes, he is. He's not doing that right now. But yeah, he's good enough. Is he good enough on his own to carry a team to a championship? No, not close. Not right now. He's not. He doesn't have a mid-range game.
I think an interesting portion of this is how much better does Donovan Mitchell get when they improve this roster? Because that's the thing I think that we can't define yet. Like, all these guys, all these names you're talking about, the Bookers, the Tatums, like, all these guys have awesome talent around them. I have to sneeze, and it's chasing me. Sorry.
What I would tell you is specifically about a guy like a Ja Morant, right? Like, if you look at Ja Morant last night, stylistically, Donovan Mitchell and Ja Morant play very similar basketball. Don's clearly a better shooter than Ja Morant right now. But it's going in for John. It's not going in for Don. The dunk that Ja Morant have, Donovan Mitchell does that. He's capable of that. Now, is he the high flyer and the acrobat that Ja Morant is? Not to that level. He's not top of the backboard high flyer. Yeah. But Don can dunk on guys. He's shown you that now. Don is absolutely an acrobat at the rim. But what my point more is that Donovan Mitchell right now, today, on April 27th of 2022, mentally he's not here. Mm-hmm. Mentally he's not able to do what needs to be done. Now, tomorrow night at the Viv, will he be that guy? We're going to find out, because games like tomorrow night are character defining. Games like tomorrow night, it's Kevin Durant getting eliminated by Boston the other night, but putting up whatever it was, 39 points.
Yeah.
Those are character defining games.
It's Kevin Durant getting eliminated because his foot was on the line. Like those type of performances. And I think that Don, I'm waiting for that kind of game out of Don, and I hope it happens. I really do. I hope that he rolls out in Game 6 and just lights it up. I really do. Even if they were to lose the game, it would be wonderful to see Donovan Mitchell come out in that game and just be cooking. And I feel like it's been a while, honestly, since Donovan Mitchell has rolled out in a game and just dominated and just been on fire, like unstoppable, like that Donovan Mitchell, like bubble Donovan Mitchell in that playoff game where he drops 50 against the Nuggets. Like, that's the kind of guy I'm like, all right, where did that guy go? Because he's here, he's in that body somewhere, but he's not present. I
think, and I've heard repeatedly, that Donovan Mitchell, this team was demoralized several times this year. Like, there were, and like the debate of whether or not the Jazz were fractured this year, it's not a debate anymore. It's not a debate. And I can only go back to what we were reporting in January, that there was significant chemistry issues in that locker room surrounding Rudy Gobert. And again, I just go back to the fact that his teammates don't like Rudy. Mm-hmm. I don't think they hate Rudy. I just think they don't like being teammates with him. I think he's a difficult guy to share a locker room with. And I think that impacts all the guys around him. I don't think that means that Rudy Gobert sucks. What I think it means is it steals some of your want to. It steals some of your passion. And I think what you're seeing is in this series that the Dallas Mavericks have limited Rudy's impact. And so you've had to have moments where Don throws a lob to Rudy and they win the game. That was a significant moment. It fixed nothing. It healed nothing.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at a guy in Donovan Mitchell who, again, has lower body injury. He's got injuries to his legs. And now questions have to be asked about him. And I will, again, my opinion has not changed on Donovan Mitchell. I think he's a superstar. I think he's a guy you're going to build this franchise around. But Donovan Mitchell's got to step up. He's got some maturing to do. He's got to learn how to be a leader, and he absolutely has to learn. He has to improve his footwork because it's killing him on defense, and he doesn't have a mid-range game. It's that simple. If he adds, I'm telling you, if he adds a mid-range game the way he added a three-point game this year, last summer he clearly worked on his three-point shot. His range, like if you look at his numbers, this year was unquestionably a career year for Donovan Mitchell. Like, the growth is unquestioned. Like, you look at his three-point percentage, he shot 35% from three, but he also took 2 more threes a game right? And he also is making, he is making a much larger impact with that. He's shooting more threes, shooting less twos, right? But he's scoring more effectively, even though, the season average was down by half a point.
Right.
He has to be able to dominate in the mid-range. That's not, if you don't have a mid-range game, and everybody keeps talking about how he used to have a mid-range game, and it doesn't matter what you used to have. Because unless you practice a skill on a regular basis and incorporate that skill into your nightly arsenal, it goes away.
Yeah.
And it's gone away. Donovan Mitchell is not a guy that plays at the rim anymore. And the reason he's shooting less twos is because he's not in the paint as much, or at least trying to finish in the paint.
Yeah. So
I think when you look at his numbers, he had a career year in assists. He had in my opinion, a really good year rebounding the ball. For a guy that shoots more threes, I think having those rebounding numbers is big. But the glaring weakness in Donovan Mitchell's game is his leadership and his mid-range. And those things have to improve.
And when they do improve, there will be a huge jump, like in his game and with this franchise. But I still maintain that because he will do all that. You can be confident in that. He will. The growth will be there. He'll put in his time with Brickley. Like, that's going to happen. I just hope for Donovan Mitchell's sake and really for the Utah Jazz sake, because he's not going to stay here forever if this continues. But I just hope that they do a good job, retooling the team. Because if they do that, you will see this team make, great strides in the postseason. You'll see Western Conference final material out of this team if they do a good job bringing in talent.
Yeah, we'll see. The talent on this roster now is just not good enough. I mean, and again, I think it's as simple as now Danny Ainge has control of the franchise.
Yeah.
Because last summer he did not. This summer he will. And I think that's why I think they were wise at the deadline. I wish they had done more with Joe Ingles at the deadline. I've talked about this ad nauseum with people around the NBA. I feel like they missed an opportunity with the Joe Ingles trade. I think that's the one that hurts you because you really got nothing for that.
Yeah.
I mean, you saved some cap space but you got nothing that tangibly helps you on the floor. And I think that hurts. And I do think that the leadership and chemistry, the glue guy that Joe Ingles was, you really miss that now. And I really don't think he comes back to the Jazz this summer. And I don't know that you want Joe Ingles back on this team this summer. I mean, I think his best days are behind him. Before he got hurt, certainly they were.
Well, and I think you just got to move on from this era, if you will, like this core group of guys. It just hasn't worked, And I'm not just talking about Rudy. I'm talking about, your Royce O'Neals. I'm talking about, Bogdanovich. Like, I love the guy. I think he's an awesome sniper on the floor. But today's league is just too athletic for him to be having this many minutes.
Well, and I think when you look at the guys they're counting on, I mean, you're counting on Daniel House, a journeyman player. He's a huge part of what you're doing right now defensively. That's scary. That you have to upgrade that.
Yeah.
I mean, Daniel House is a 9, 10, 11 guy on every roster. I mean, if you look around the league, he doesn't even play if he's a Boston Celtic. Like, I don't know that he's on that team, frankly. You look at the guys that are making this roster, and you look at the Mike Conleys. Mike Conley's not a top 7 guy on a championship team. He's not. He is a guy that he has value to the Lakers. He'd have value to a team like, if you look at the Clippers, if you look at, look at Dallas was rumored to be a place for Mike Conley. Are you playing Mike Conley over Jalen Brunson?
No,
I'm not. I mean, like if you look at those guys, I can't even think of a rotational player that Mike Conley would take minutes from in Dallas because their main guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, like those guys, you're not taking minutes from those guys.
No.
For Mike Conley, and you're not taking Brunson minutes. You're not doing that. And if Tim Hardaway Jr. was healthy, Mike Conley isn't even playing.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you have to understand is you're emotionally tied to this Jazz roster, but those of us that are not fans, those of us that analyze basketball for a living, we we have the ability to tell you that guys like Rudy Gobert are good. They're not great. Rudy Gobert will never be the best player on a championship team. That will never happen. And, that's why this argument about feed Rudy, give him the ball more is, and I'm not trying to write off anybody's feelings or opinions, but it's a ridiculous argument.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a ridiculous argument to take touches away from Donovan Mitchell. I mean, I just ask you point blank, who do you want to shoot the ball? Do you want Rudy Gobert to shoot the ball, or do you want Donovan Mitchell to shoot the ball?
Well, they started the last game with a set to feed Mike Conley on a 3-ball attempt. So I mean, I think what we're seeing is they're trying to get guys like Mike Conley going, but I think if it's just straight up Don versus Rudy, of course, you got to give the ball to Donovan Mitchell.
And the argument about, Rudy's 70% field goal percentage, that's because he dunks constantly.
It's just a convenient argument.
Yeah,
it's stat guy argument.
I think you just have to understand that. All right, Edgar Garcia, first one in this morning. How are you? Ishmael Beck Nielsen, good to see you, my friend. Edgar says, does intercourse count as exercise? Yes. Yes, it does. I burned extra calories yesterday. Neville93 says, good morning, guys. Shout out from Obamba. What's up, Neville? Where you been, man?
Obama.
Yeah, good to see you. Tanner Plummer says, what Zach said wasn't blasphemy. We'll talk about that in a minute because, it was. Edgar Garcia says, if so on the average, I exercise for about 30 seconds. If sex is exercise, he
We're clear on that?
30 seconds at a time.
And stuff.
See what that's a longevity stamina issue.
Right.
JJ Marr says, good morning, fellas. I'm at the gym now. Hey, JJ. Good on you, man. Quinn coached the number one defense and the number one offense in different season. Needs a better roster. Absolutely. What's up, Garcia? Good to see you. Rudy Sanchez says, morning, fellas. I think Mitchell will become more elite once he has the help he deserves around him. And in my opinion, once that happens, there will be less injuries. I would agree with that.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like when you look around the postseason, all these other guys, like, even look at Luka. Luka's got guys that can help him win these games, that frankly are helping him win these games. You look at Ja, you look at Jason Tatum, you look at, any team that's having success, Minnesota, like all these teams have all these role players that contribute on a nightly basis and make a difference so you can win the game. Don doesn't have that. Like, if
you look at Phoenix, they're without Devin Booker, and Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are big parts of why they won that game last night.
Yeah.
That should tell you all you need to know about. And I know we take a lot of flack for saying that this Jazz team hasn't had depth in 2 years.
They haven't.
Look at George Niang. George Niang's a Philadelphia 76er, and he's not contributing. But here, there were fans who were terribly upset that he was let go. You should have celebrated him being let go. When Daniel House is no longer on this roster, you're going to be a better team for it. When Bogey and Conley, and they've been great contributors to the club. Great contributors to the club. But when they're gone, you're going to be better for it. And I think you just need to go through that process. And you will go through that process this summer. I think I just would be shocked if Bogey, Don, and Rudy Gobert are teammates next year. I would just be stunned.
It just doesn't work. That's the thing. Like, if they're still teammates, then we got to have a serious discussion about what the front office and Ryan Smith is doing.
CJ So Cool Jr., what's up, buddy? Thanks for being here. He says he's going to be injury prone. He's 6'1", carrying the Jazz since his rookie year. He's actually a point guard, and he had to morph into the Jazz need to fire Quinn Snyder. Young big guards in the draft. Well, you don't have draft picks. That's the problem.
But I also think, like, let's not get away from this. Donovan Mitchell's never had the mentality of a point guard.
No.
Donovan Mitchell is a shooting guard.
He's a scorer
who wants to score.
He's a scorer.
Like, that's what he wants. So, yeah, do I agree that he's undersized for the position? Yeah, he's undersized for the position. There's no doubt about it. But he's got to find a way to strengthen the body and get savvy in the mid-range.
But size doesn't matter, though. We keep talking about this. When we look at Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is like 4'3", and he is killing you at the rim. He is killing you in the mid. Look at that multiple move fadeaway that he hits on a regular basis on Rudy and Bogey.
But would you say that that's a mid-range style? Being physical, understanding how to use your body.
Look at John Morant.
Yeah.
Look at Chris Paul. I mean, you can be undersized in this league and be really effective. But you got to be able to hit a free throw line jumper at will.
Yeah.
the thing with Don is he undersized? I think he is 6 foot. Yes, he's undersized. Yes, he's undersized. That has nothing to do with his performance. Nothing. And I think it has to do with the toll that he takes and the beating he takes, but it does not mean that he cannot be physical, and it does not mean that he cannot dominate in this league. He is a guy that should be scoring 30 points a night, but he doesn't. He has a huge hole in his offense.
Yeah.
He has a huge hole in his offense.
I think right now, with where his game is at right here today, I do think the size thing impacts him. Next season, after he's educated on how to use his body the right way in the mid-range around that free throw line area extended, the size thing will be alleviated. It won't matter.
He's got to get in better shape. Donovan Mitchell
I agree with, yeah.
has got to train his legs. These ankle, quad, hamstring injuries now that are popping up are not accidental. He did not play a deep playoff run last year. He did not go to the Olympics last year. Donovan Mitchell didn't train his body last year. Is that because he had a significant ankle injury? I don't know. But he has got to dedicate himself to not having lower body injuries. Mm-hmm. When you look at, I look at Steph Curry. Steph Curry has gone years without a significant ankle injury now. And that's a guy that had weak ankles, right? So you can do it. Devin Booker's another good example of a guy that has trained his way out of soft tissue injuries until right now when he's got a hamstring injury. Donovan is hurt all season long. He's got to be better than that. Erich Tavera, good morning to you, my friend. Last year, Jazz had identity that fell short. They now is trying to a new one while the Mavs forced KP identity, and this year they found that it was Brunson. Jazz this year is the Mavs last year. That's an interesting comparison. I've heard that a lot. You're going to have to move, like the Porzingis comparison's interesting because you got better, not worse, once you traded Kristaps Porzingis.
It's funny how that works.
You got better, not worse. So the balls it takes not to make trades. That's the thing. Like, it's easy to say, well, we made this trade and it failed miserably. But do you have the fortitude to go out and not make a trade? Well, the Jazz did. They passed on guys like Dinwiddie. They passed on a deal that would have landed them significantly more talent. And the question now, like Montrezl Harrell is a guy they could have had. How much better is this team right now if they have Montrezl Harrell? Especially in a series against Dallas.
Quite a bit better.
I mean, so now you better get better this summer because some of those deals that you didn't make are going to come back and get you. Right? I mean, how much better are you against Dallas if Spencer Dinwiddie's wearing the note instead of wearing the Mavs jersey?
You're up 3-2 right now.
I think you're up 3-2. I agree with that. Brandon Whitesides, good morning to you. He says, Don has stopped playing like Ja. I think if Don was hitting shots, we wouldn't care, but he's not right now. Oh, absolutely. If you're performing, nobody cares.
Doesn't matter how you're performing.
Nobody cares. Yeah, you're performing. And Garcia says, in your opinion, Monty and Jake, would Donovan Mitchell be able to accept a secondary option role on the Jazz or any other team? Why would you want him to be a secondary option?
Well, if he's a secondary option to Steph Curry or Kevin Durant, yeah, I'm sure he will accept
think
that.
He would care.
Yeah, but I think as a Jazz man, no, he is the number one, and I think that you could brand it if you were to go out and get a player on his level. You could market it or brand it as, hey, these two are partners in crime, if you will. But you're not going to see a situation where they bring someone in who is going to be like, yep, this is my squad now. Don, you're number 2 on the totem pole. Yeah, that's not how it's going to work.
I mean, when you look at the guys in this league that score at the level that Donovan scores, I mean, it's awfully difficult. I mean, he's the 9th leading scorer in the NBA, man. You know the guys who are ahead of him? Durant, Curry, Giannis, Brandon Ingram, Jalen. Like, if you look at the guys scoring more than him right now in the playoffs, he's top 10 right now in the playoffs.
And he's struggling.
Do you understand how much you undervalue and do not appreciate Donovan Mitchell? You look at he's scoring more points per game by a lot than Joel Embiid and Klay Thompson. He's outscoring Jordan Poole, who's one of the hottest players in the playoffs. He's outscoring Anthony Edwards and Desmond Bane. And do you understand that this guy is a right now today, he's one of the leading scorers. I don't know what more you
know what's funny about that list?
He's ninth in the regular season.
Bro, Desmond Bane and Jaylen Brown are number 2 options on their team. And they're on this list. That should tell you just how short this roster is in Salt Lake.
He's scoring 25.9 points per game this season. Here are the guys ahead of him. Devin Booker, 8th. Jason Tatum, 7th. Jokic, 6th. DeMar, 5th. Trae Young, 4th. Luka, 3rd. Giannis, 2nd. And Joel Embiid, number 1. Those are the only players in the NBA who scored more points per game than Donovan Mitchell. Like, how much do you undervalue him? And I know I keep saying this. The guy scores a ton of points for you. He is a 40-point guy on a regular basis in this league.
Yeah.
And yet you want to trade him and you want to cast him off, and he doesn't. When this guy adds a mid-range game, he has the potential. It's very difficult to do, but he has the potential to be like a top 3 scorer in the league. Yeah. Can he win a scoring championship? I think that's almost impossible. I think it's almost impossible to do that.
I don't even, for Don, I think if you said to him, hey, you're going to average 30 a night and you'll be in contention for the scoring championship, you won't win it, but you'll be in contention, but your team's going to go to the Western Conference Finals because they revamped the roster and you're fully healthy and you've got a mid-range now, Don's going to take that all day. And as a Jazz fan, you should take that all day.
But he also can't miss 15 games a year.
Yeah.
That's not going to get the job done.
Yeah.
You got to play 75 games a year.
Yep.
You can miss a handful. You can, if you're playing, the best guys in the league are playing 75, 76 games a year.
Yeah.
You look at even a guy like Joel Embiid played one more game than Donovan Mitchell did. Don's got to get healthy. He's got to get healthy. All right, a couple more on this because we got to get moving. BB says, my problem is, can we trade Conley? You can. Suns Rule says, I feel sad for Donovan Mitchell. He needs to leave the Jazz. Rudy is a typical Jazz player. Jazz should keep him. No, Jazz should trade Rudy Gobert. No doubt. Marius Georgian Chiveron says, Utah in 7. Take note. Cody Strickland says, morning, guys. Jazz killed me and my wife. I'm sorry. Rest in peace.
That's tough.
I'm still not seeing any trade value for anyone but Donovan. I think that Rudy Gobert could have been moved. I know Rudy Gobert could have been moved at the deadline. Absolutely. Rudy Gobert, they can make a trade. It's a matter of how much they have to give up to move him. That's the real question. Tanner says, as a Jazz fan, I for sure can say that I take Donovan for granted. I would agree. Donovan being a Knick would kill his career. I don't know about that. Would he win championships as a Knick? Nah, I don't think the Knicks are going to win championships. Tanner says, Don becoming a Knick would kill the Jazz fan base. Frank says, if someone named Dorian can shut you down, you're in no way, shape, or form a superstar. What has his name got to do with anything? Suns Rule says, undersized players like Donovan can't do much in a lengthy wing league. Well, then, what do you say to Trae Young? What do you say? What do you say to Jalen Brunson? What do you say to John Morant? What do you say to Chris Paul? What do you say to Chris Paul's an MVP candidate?
What do you say to Alvarado?
What do you say? There's tons of undersized guys in this league.
Yeah.
You better be able to shoot the ball, and you better be durable. That's really what it comes down to. Cody said, Don going to the Knicks is like KD going to the Nets. He will not do better than his previous team. I think Kevin Durant's going to win championships with the Nets. I really do. I think this is a critical offseason for them. Suns Rule says, Mitchell got his contract. He would be pleased to spend all that money in New York. Don's not a contract guy, in my opinion. Greg Hawkins, good morning to you. And Garcia says, no Mamba Mitchell needs to take note from what Ja did in the final minutes last night. Don does that on a regular basis. He shoots three, he gets to the basket, and he dunks.
Here's the problem with that comment. This tells me all I need to know. You didn't watch that game, did you? Ja Morant struggled for 36 minutes in that game.
Yeah, he's been trashed for the last 3 games.
He hasn't played well. He had 3 plays back to back to back that define the morning news cycle. That's how the NBA works, and that's why I'm saying if Don comes out and rolls out with 40 to 50 anywhere in there in this game 6, people will remember this game. Even if they get eliminated, they will remember it.
Yeah, this is a highlight league. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Ruff's official says if you can't use field goal percentage stats, then you can't use points per game because when you shoot 25 times a game, you score more. Okay, well, what stat do you want me to use? Like if you look at the best players in this league, like Don doesn't shoot 25 times a game. He shoots 20 times a game. Devin shoots 20 times a game. Tatum shoots 20 times a game. DeRozan, Trae Young, Luka Doncic all shoot 20 times a game.
How many times is Kevin Durant down the list further? How many times is Kevin Durant shooting a game?
Where is Kevin Durant?
Like, the thing is, while you're looking for that, the thing is, this whole thing with Ruff's about, he shoots 70% from the field. You surely you can't get away from the fact that he's only doing that because he's standing under the basket, dude. Like, I don't understand how to make this any clearer. I don't get it. Like, can't you see the glaring lack in Rudy Gobert's game? That he can't shoot the basketball, that he can't be a productive offensive player more than 5 feet from the basket, if that. Like, can you not see that glaring shortcoming in his game? I would tell you that Rudy's shortcomings offensively are twice as worse as Donovan's not having a mid-range, really. I mean, that's the level we're at with Rudy. So I don't want to hear you say, well, if you can't use field goal percentage, you can't use points per game. Yes, you can use points per game.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
You used points per game yesterday when you tried to argue with us that Rudy was more important. Rudy's not 30 points a night. Rudy's not 25 points a night. He's 17 to 20 points a night, and he gives you 10 to 15 rebounds. That's what he does, and that's fine. But what I'm telling you is it's not up to him whether the Jazz win or lose. It's up to Donovan Mitchell. That's who it's up to. So that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Durant shoots 15 twos a game and 5.5 threes. So guess what? He shoots 20 times a game. I mean, what is wrong with Donovan Mitchell shooting the ball 20 times a game?
He's just got to make them. That's the thing. Like, again, I don't want to see or read comments this morning saying we're not criticizing Donovan Mitchell. We are.
Yeah.
He needs to make it at a higher percentage. He needs to develop a mid-range game, and he needs to work on his body and get stronger.
Yeah, I just don't know how you justify trading Donovan Mitchell and keeping Rudy Gobert. Like, I mean, just in salary alone, it's not a smart way to build a championship team. I mean, Donovan's making $15 million a year less than Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean,
you're in the play-in at that point. I hope everybody understands that. You trade Don and keep Rudy, you're in the play-in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Louis Diaz, good morning to you. I think Rudy effectively based on Ingles' assist effectivity, based on Ingles' assist in the pick and roll. We need Mike and Donovan to be like Ingles so we can run blender. Well, I mean, the hard part right now is there's not a lot of human movement in the Jazz offense. I mean, the Jazz don't really run offense. They don't, like, you look at some of the Mikal Bridges buckets last night, those backdoor cuts, those runs through the lane, the Jazz don't have that. You very rarely see Jazz men cutting through the paint and picking up backdoor layups. Like, that's just not who this team is.
Yeah.
This is an iso ball 3-point shooting team. And they got away from that for large swaths of the series. Now they got back to it the other night and they went 3 for 30. So
Brutal.
They need to keep shooting threes, in my opinion. I don't know. Big Dog O-Town, what's up with you? He says, if he was shooting 70% with a signature shot, then I'll give him props. Until then, stop it.
Shout out to Mo Bamba.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you dunk and you shoot 70%, it's not impressive. When all of your shots are dunks, it's not impressive. It really isn't. Donovan needs to cut down on turnovers, James Knight says. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Pistons won a chip with all 5 starters being defensive-minded. Yeah, right, but that was in a very different era of the NBA. I mean, if you look at the Ben Wallace, you look at those teams, they also attack the basket routinely. I mean, that was a team that you look at Sheed, you look at Rip, you look at, Chauncey, like that team had professional basketball players on it. That was a really good defensive team, but they were also really effective offensively.
Yeah.
And I just think the game has changed so much. This has become a 3-and-D league. I mean, I think the best defensive team in the NBA is the Boston Celtics, and they shoot the three at a very high level. I think you also get a lot of really good rotation and ball movement in that Celtic offense as well. Well. Good morning, y'all, Jeremy Bolton says. Bench O'Neal Neville93 says is not looking good. Well, there's something to that. Spencer Morgan, good morning to you. We learned recently that the Jazz passed on a deal that would have gotten them Siakam for Rudy. Yeah, we talked a lot about that. I think we were the only ones reporting that, and then everybody picked up on it.
Yeah.
Toronto still, I will say what I've said for, I think, going on 3 months. Toronto makes the most sense by far. It's not close. They have young talent. They have length at wing, and they have draft capital. And that's what it's going to take for the first team that the Jazz engage. Because any Rudy Gobert team, any trade is going to be a 3-team minimum. Because you're going to need draft capital, cap space, and human beings to move.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when you look at, if the Jazz had been able to land Montrezl Harrell and Pascal Siakam, you're in a different position now. You're in a very different position now. So there are trades that can be made. There's no doubt about that. The problem is when you're a luxury tax paying team like the Jazz, it's got to be dollar for dollar. And they don't have draft capital, at least near time. I think their next first round pick they own is 2025, something like that. I mean, like, they don't have a first pick for years. So trading is not optional. It is mandatory. You have to do that. You know, like, I think the problem is you're just not, I don't know that you can build a championship with Rudy Gobert on the roster. The money on its own, forget anything on the court. The money in this roster is deplorable. Like,
Yeah.
Mike Conley for 21, Rudy for 41, like, that's $62 million right there. I mean, and then you start looking at, you know, the contributions you're not getting from guys that are lower on the cap, whether that's Boyan or, like, you just can't count on Boyan right now. You don't know what you're going to get from Royce on a nightly basis. Like, those are, while you're not paying them tons of money, those are expensive deals because you can't count on them.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how do they get out of this hole? Because this really is the crater that Dennis Lindsay left you. You know, like, man, the Mike Conley trade is really just squeezing your balls right now. Like, I mean, it is. If Grayson Allen was on this roster, geez.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of options. There are a lot of things that could have changed your fortune. But I think, you know, unfortunately, that's 2020 vision of the past. You know, I think now I hate to say this, but I just feel like you're going to come into this game 6 and you're going to fight for your life. But
Yes.
I think I was thinking about this a lot last night. Yesterday on the show, we talked about, hey, are they going to end their season at Vivint? Is that going to happen?
Man, I hope not.
I hope not either. But I got to tell you, when I start to think about this and I start to think about the way this season went, that would be a very poetic ending to this season. With all the Rudy Gobert, Donovan conversations and issues and things that have come along, with just all the stuff that's happened this year, ending your season in that building and ending this group's time together in that building would make sense to me, you know? Not that they're going to try to lose, but I just wouldn't be surprised, you know? And I don't think that Dallas wants to go home for a Game 7. You don't want Game 7 with the Jazz. Like, you don't want that.
No, and you cannot allow Luka to dance on you. Like, those shoulder shimmy, like, that BS. He owned Hassan Whiteside the other night.
Yeah.
Like, the more I've thought about that play, and I asked an NBA guy I know about that yesterday, and he said that Luka knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. He's trying to piss off the Jazz, and it worked.
Yep, got in their head.
It absolutely worked, and it's unfortunate. It really is. All right, Ruff's official says, what does it matter if it's a dunk or a shot when you get points? The winner is who gets more points. Wow.
You
really?
just don't get it. You
Really?
don't get it, dude.
Okay.
You don't understand.
How do I, man, Ruffs, I don't know how to bring you around to this because you're just so stuck on the fact that Rudy Gobert, look at the games where Rudy Gobert is your leading scorer, right? Like, you can't win those games on a regular basis because the style that this team is built to play is not throw the ball to the post and get Rudy a dunk. The style that this team is wanting and built to play in is run, pull up jumpers from 3 on the fast break, ball rotation, pick and roll, pop, shoot the 3. That's where this team is the best. Why is Rudy Gobert one of the leading rebounders in the NBA? Because he is an elite offensive rebounder because they shoot a ton of threes and they miss You miss by nature 6 out of every 10. If you're elite,
You've got a wealth of opportunity to rebound the basketball.
if you're elite, you're missing 6 of every 10 shots. If you're average like the Jazz are, you miss 5.5 on their average. And I don't mean that they're an average three-point shooting team, because they're really a good three-point shooting team. But when on their average, they're making like, what do they miss? 7, 6.5, 6.5, 7 of their threes go in. I mean, I'm telling you, when this team shoots 50% for three, it's over. When they make just 5 of every 10, it's over. When they start missing 6 of every 10, 7 of every 10, 8 of every 10, that's when Rudy Gobert has big nights. And you look at the nights where he's 20 and 20, they miss a lot of shots. You look at the nights where they make a ton of threes, they're unbeatable. Think about the change in fortune against the Clippers, where they make 17 threes in the first half last year and then don't make but 2 in the second half.
Yeah.
Right? This team is built to shoot threes. That's who their talent is. That's where their
Live by it
talent
and
is.
die by it.
So when you say, why does it matter? It matters because if you're hoping to take 5 shots a game, which is what I think you said yesterday, away from Donovan Mitchell, and give them to Rudy Gobert, that means that Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, Donovan Mitchell, Jordan Clarkson, none of those guys are in rhythm. None of those guys are shooting in volume, and you're not going to win the game. It's not an indictment on Rudy that they lose when he's their best scorer, when he's their highest scorer. Why is that a problem? Because the other guys struggle. They shot 3 of 30 from 3 the other night. How many of those did Rudy Gobert shoot? None. And why did they lose? Because their best players struggled. So when when you're giving Rudy the ball for 10, 15 dunks a game, that's all well and good. It does nothing for momentum, and it gets nobody started.
Yeah, his best games are when he's got more rebounds than points.
I mean, it's very basic. It's very basic.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's not rocket science.
For this team to excel, Mike Conley's got to shoot more threes. Bojan Bogdanovic needs to make 5 threes a game, because that's his game. Yeah. So when you take 5 shots from Donovan and give them, if you want to say, hey, take 5 shots from Donovan, give 2 of those to Mike and 3 of those to Bogey, I'm on board with that. Donovan's struggling. I'm not on board with taking 5 from Donovan and giving 5 to Rudy.
Yeah.
That's just not a recipe to win. Different coach still, hamburger, Brandon Butler says. Could be. Big Dog O-Town says, Faux show this series is over Thursday. You can't explain the logic to these Rudy fans. It's a waste of good oxygen. Yeah, I agree. I love that you're here every day, man, and I love that you make the effort. But again, nobody is saying Ruff's official. Nobody is saying take Donovan out of the game. Dish to Rudy. Get a couple more dunks.
Nobody said to take Don out of the game, dude.
No. Anyway, all right. Let's move on. Zach Wilson, New York Jet quarterback, BYU football alum. This is a problem. So Zach Wilson is a member of the LDS Church. He is really not practicing. He doesn't go to church. He admits that. But when you're playing golf with your friends, you can't say this.
Yeah, there we go. You throw like Joseph Smith telling you plays on the sidelines.
You look like you still have a charge from college.
Joseph Smith was fucking 10 bitches, so.
Let's go.
Joseph Smith was effing 10 bitches. Zach Wilson cannot say that. I mean,
Smith was fucking 10 bitches.
You can't say that. And, you know, like, I say that and my wife is laughing in the background. I actually don't think it's funny at all. I actually think that this is a real problem. The reaction on Twitter was absolutely, it was viral yesterday. Like, people thought
it was, I mean, there were some people who were upset, admittedly, there was, but there were also a good portion of people who thought it was funny. And I think that's what's fascinating about the Zach Wilson situation. You know, you have somebody who, like you just said, is a member of the church, but isn't really practicing. So where does that, see, this is what I don't understand. Where does the responsibility stop? If you're a member of the church but you're not practicing, do you still have the responsibility not to say, hey, Joseph Smith was effing 10
bitches.
10 bitches. Like where does that come and go. Like, I think that's a rough thing to say just as a quarterback in the NFL on tape with everything that's gone down. But then you add the LDS factor, and you're like, all right, well, that's probably not a good look, you know?
I mean, technically, he's totally wrong. Joseph Smith had 40 wives.
Yeah, like, and listen, I'm not. It's not a right or wrong thing. See, here's the problem. It's not a right or wrong thing. It's not a polygamy thing. And Mrs. Monty and I totally disagree on this. I'm not a Mormon. I am not a member of the LDS Church. I drink caffeine, and proudly so. But I am not somebody that believes you mock somebody for their religion. I just don't believe that. I have a real problem when you're Zach Wilson and you made your name off of BYU. Mm-hmm. You made your name. You could have gone to Boise. You didn't want to do that. You came to BYU. And they put you number 2 in the draft to the New York Jets. You owe BYU just about everything you have in football. And so you're playing golf with your friends and you're talking about Joseph Smith fucking 10 bitches? Whether you're a churchgoer or not, that's just not something you say.
Why is that something that he can't say?
Because it shows a complete lack of respect for the church. It shows a complete lack of respect for the faith. It shows a complete lack of respect for the institution that created your football career. Because you went there weighing 55 pounds. Mm-hmm. You know, like you it's bad enough that his whole family has been controversial. Like, for him to say this is, I don't know, man. I maybe I make too much of this. I don't know.
The thing that I'm struggling with is that it's very close to how people or religions want to freak out about blasphemy. And I don't think, I truly believe that you have a right to say what you want to say. There's no, I don't think blasphemy is a thing. It didn't hurt someone's, like it's, I can see where a younger person in a casual setting in modern times could say, hey, even another, like, there's other religions where there's multiple wives. Yeah, that, was
but
fucking 10 bitches.
Right, I get it, but this is Zach Wilson, who spent his entire adolescence and his entire teenage life at BYU. He grew into a man at BYU.
What's the context of this conversation? Is he joking around?
No, it was unsolicited. And it was, again, he is standing on the tee box, and there's a trend in golf right now when you're out golfing with your friends where you're standing over the ball, you're about to tee off, like the club is at address, like you're just about ready to swing and hit. And they start saying things to you to like make you laugh and throw you off your game. And Mrs. Monty, by the way, can't hear the audio, but we'll play it again. This is him, and you hear his friends, David Lee, the former NBA player, one of them, like, you hear his friends like chirping him up. And one of the things they said was about Joseph Smith. You look like Joseph Smith or whatever. Here's the audio again.
Yeah, there we go. You throw like Joseph Smith.
You throw like Joseph Smith.
You look like you still have a charge from college.
Joseph Smith was fucking 10 bitches, so.
So, and there you go. So he says Joseph Smith was effing 10 bitches and then crushes a drive down the middle.
Mm-hmm. I don't see that as blasphemy. I don't see that as outrageous or salacious. He had 40 wives. The guy is making a joke that he was, and yes, he technically was fucking 10 bitches.
Well, that's all well and good.
I'm sorry, but I don't see that as blasphemy. The guy was joking around.
I guess we'll disagree.
You never, ever said anything funny before.
But I do not believe in making jokes. And we've had this argument before. I don't believe in making jokes about the church. This goes back to, polygamy and magic underwear.
So it says, you sent me something last night that I think is just important in the context of this conversation we're having.
Yes, it is blasphemy, by the way.
The definition of blasphemy, according to the church, according to the LDS faith, is speaking disrespectfully or irrelevantly of God or sacred things, which obviously
Joseph Smith is about as sacred as it gets.
Would be sacred. So I don't disagree with your logic, Mrs. Monty's logic, that, hey, like, this is modern times, Joseph Smith was doing that type of stuff, but it's more to me about, like, hey, like, you have you have a responsibility whether you like it or not. You represent BYU. You're an alma mater of BYU. You notice that, any of the other great names who went to BYU aren't out here saying stuff on TikTok like this. I think it's a bad look. Either way, there's no getting away from the fact you look like an idiot saying that on TikTok. Like,
yeah, and I
that's
think,
just dumb.
listen, Joseph Smith is a lot of things. There are people in the LDS church who tell you Joseph Smith is a problem for the LDS church, and I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I understand he's a controversial figure. Joseph Smith is not Jesus Christ. Let's separate the two, right? But Greg Hawkins probably makes the best point of all. Blasphemy is a fake crime made up by people.
Thank you.
And I think that's probably true. It doesn't change the fact that Zach Wilson shouldn't have said what he said.
It's a bad
and
look.
It spits at the feet of everybody at fucking BYU who helped this kid become who he is and dealt with a lot of BS with this kid and has dealt with his mother and has dealt with his family and has dealt with a lot of things that you shouldn't say Joseph Smith was fucking 10 bitches on a golf tee because BYU is giving you what you have largely.
So hopefully someone that he
Okay, I
cares
feel
about
better.
says to him, hey, dude, that was not cool. Because, well, the whole world chastising him for being not cool is not cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, man, I think that this is one of those deals where you just forgot to me what BYU's done for you. Like, it's just the disrespect thing. Let's be honest. Why am I upset about this? I'm not sitting here defending the faith or the church. I'm upset he disrespected BYU. I really don't like that this happens all the time. Like this isn't, and I see all the Max Hall comments that are getting filtered, but this isn't Max Hall, the drug addict who stole at Best Buy. That's not disrespect. This is way different than that. This is way different than that. And no, I'm not going to bring up the Harvey Unga thing or come on, folks, please. He should not. If it can, how are we arguing this? I can't believe there are people who think this is fine.
Take out the LDS thing, right? Take out the LDS factor. This guy's an NFL quarterback on a tee box with his friends in the offseason, in an offseason full of women getting abused by NFL players, and we want to make jokes about Joseph Smith fucking 10 bitches. That doesn't seem like a smart thing to be doing.
Yeah.
Just in the parlance of what's going on in the NFL. I get it. You're with your friends. I also get it. You're an NFL quarterback and a multimillionaire. You have a responsibility not to say dumb things on TikTok. I think it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I just think, and of course, Jeremy Bolton's got to bring up Brady Quinn. Jeremy Bolton says it's just about respect. Yeah, he can say whatever he wants. It's just a bad look from a university who gave him everything.
Yeah.
It's like if Brady Quinn yelled, Pope raped 10 children. Thank you,
Oh.
Jeremy Bolton. That's
Good
great.
job, Jeremy.
Good news.
Very
you.
true.
Obviously, Brady Quinn, my man crush, who I almost got bodily fluid on his leg when we were at the Super Bowl together.
Right.
But that was one of the greatest moments of my life. My producer was like, hey, I've got Brady Quinn for you. And I turn and see that sex machine Brady Quinn walking towards us. It was amazing. And then I realized he looked like a leprechaun. And he went to Notre Dame, so making sex jokes about the Catholic Church would be uncouth. But, Greg Hawkins says all religions are fair game for jokes. Zach Wilson isn't representing BYU anymore. He was representing the Jets. I think
that's a very fine line, sir.
See,
And
Greg, why do you come in here with intelligent, deep thoughts like this? Stop.
Stop
Here's the
disrespecting me,
thing.
bro.
We none of us went to BYU.
No.
And I would love to hear from somebody who went to BYU to hear if there are jokes made within the college
It doesn't
about
matter.
plural marriage.
Oh, there
Because-
is.
Well, then how do you tell that kid you can make jokes in school privately, but you can't make
Because
jokes
that kid doesn't
elsewhere?
play for the New York Jets. That kid is not one of the most high-profile athletes to come through
I
BYU
think
in the
that
last 10
you're
years.
You're just way over the top on this.
Okay. I think, again, I'm not Mormon.
Does he
I'm not
have a
LDS.
responsibility? Does he have a responsibility as a high profile athlete who went to BYU not to say stuff like this?
I don't think he does anymore. He's not at BYU anymore.
You're always at BYU. You're always at Notre Dame. You're always at Clemson. You're always at. Did Deshaun Watson bring great shame to Clemson? Yeah, I would guess he did. Did Reggie Bush bring great shame to USC? Yeah, I would guess he did. It's part of your identity when you're a major college athlete. Where did Michael Jordan go to college?
UNC.
North Carolina. You look at the biggest. Where did Donovan Mitchell go to college? Louisville. Like you look at guys. Kevin Durant went to Texas. You're identified by your school, man. Like, and especially for an institution like BYU that routinely gets mud thrown at them because of the church.
I do think that this particular situation does bring light to the fact that just because you're LDS doesn't mean you're living the faith. Like, I think that needs to be
Absolutely
said.
not.
You know?
Absolutely not.
I
That's
think that
exactly
needs,
right.
I think that needs to be said, and that's something. When I first saw this, I was like, yeah, like I feel like we live in Utah. Like I feel like I see people all the time who are definitely LDS but are not practicing.
But think about religion in general. This is the problem. I grew up Catholic, man, and I cannot tell you how many times I pleasured myself thinking about nuns.
God bless.
Like it's that whole okay. See what I meant to say. I mean, my point is that's the old joke in the Catholic Church is that, hey, you're not allowed to pleasure yourself and you will not think about sex. But you wind up pleasuring yourself thinking about nuns because they're beating you with a stick. Like it's this whole thing about
is that a euphemism?
No.
It's just repression.
Yeah,
and
repression.
control.
But think about the LDS Church. Is there a more repressive church than the Mormon Church?
Oh.
That faith is very difficult to live up to the standard. You look at the beauty factor that
There
you
are
have
other
to be
ones
perfect.
just
Right,
as
but
oppressive.
But the Mormon Church has a level of perfection that is unattainable.
Yeah.
And if you look at guys like Zach Wilson, I don't have a problem with him. Is he a Jack Mormon? He may be. I don't know. But I don't want to see it on tape. If he's a terrible Mormon, I don't want to see it demonstrated on
Joseph
TikTok.
Smith was fucking 10
hopefully
bitches.
someone that he cares about can talk to him and help him to understand why he shouldn't do that in the future, but that's not us.
Yeah, it is what it is. If Wilson was raised LDS, he probably feels like he was deceived his whole life and has some resentment. He probably doesn't have much love, respect for the church, Spencer Morgan says. Yeah, he does not attend church, and he is not an active member.
Listen, let's not go as far as to say that this guy is a suffering LDS member. This guy went to church as a kid, was baptized in an LDS church, and is not a practicing, member.
He's not a practicing
He's an
member.
NFL quarterback who's a multimillionaire out on a golf course having fun.
He said something stupid.
Yeah, and he looks like an idiot, and he's going to get backlash for this.
He
like,
is.
it's
He's
not,
getting it now.
Like listen, like if you're Tiger Woods or you're Deshaun Watson or whoever, any professional athlete has a responsibility not to say dumb things and do dumb things. And Zach Wilson, you're in New York City. Everybody's going to be on this. I'm telling you, everybody.
You're the starting quarterback of the New York Jets, man.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about a couple other things real quick.
Yeah.
We're going out to the Salt Flats this weekend with the Jeep.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to the Salt Flats, by the way?
Yeah, I've been to Wendover. I have never stopped by the Salt Flats and driven on them. I'm excited to take our Jeep out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then next week the Jeep gets lifted. So here's the question, is it fun to go and do donuts on the Salt Flats?
Yeah.
I think it is really fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. I think it's super fun, especially if you have a Jeep or if you have, Tacoma or 4Runner or like an off-road vehicle. Yeah, I think that's going to be incredibly fun. I think that's the whole point of having those kind of vehicles.
Okay. Jeremy Bolton. Now, if Zach would have said something stupid or said something about fisting multiple ranch dressings, then that's crossing the line.
Jeremy, your headband's on too tight today, bud. I got news for you.
We almost made it through a show without him bringing up. Anyway, here's my point. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
I'm super excited about that. And part of the other thing about weekends with the Jeep is we're not working out very much on the weekends anymore. So you want to get a mirror? You brought it. I don't know that you want to get a mirror.
Yeah.
You brought up the mirror to me.
Yeah, no.
Like working out at home versus working out at the gym.
Yeah, I think so the pandemic made it so that a lot of people started working out at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that since the pandemic started, there's been a lot of gimmicks like the mirror that have come out and have said, hey, this is a great at-home workout. I
don't get the mirror thing.
Yeah, I think it's just a cool. The word I use is a gimmick. It's not fake. It's just a gimmick. It's like, hey, there's this mirror on the wall, and it you can work out to it. Like my point just is it more comfortable to work out at home or at the gym? Because I'm a gym guy. I like going to the gym. I like the feel of the gym. But like Mrs. Monty doesn't like going to the gym. She prefers the at-home vibe. So I think it's really interesting after the pandemic how many people now are at-home people.
I don't know.
I think
You never go to the gym.
No.
You're a Pelotoner. You're on the bike or like you were on the treadmill this morning and
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to have the guns, but it's fine,
Not concerned, but
Um,
yeah, everybody has different fitness goals. But
Why
I
don't you
think-
like going to the gym? You don't enjoy the gym.
Yeah, gyms are filthy. Like
Wow.
filthy. I've taken pictures and taken them to the front desk and been like, "Hey, when is the last time you ever cleaned this place?"
Do you even lift?
Yeah, I got to say,
Disgusting.
Vaza needs to pick up the janitorial services because
One
that
time
I
you
would
got
agree.
ringworm from using a preacher curl bench.
Yeah.
Like,
What do you bench?
nah,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, I
Mm-mm.
won't preacher curl at a public gym. That's
Nope.
gross. That's gross.
But that doesn't mean the gym is not usable.
No,
Or, like,
I
you
think
can't-
the gains that we've had, and the gains that we've had for me anyway have largely been through nutrition. But the lifting and I mean, it's it's phenomenal to see. Like, I actually have traps and shoulders, and like it's crazy.
I'm more talking
It's
about
crazy.
the vibe. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the energy you feel when you walk into a gym.
Oh, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. Like I love, like, we just got a Peloton tread. I love it. I love it. It's been 2 weeks since I used it because we were out of town. But it's really, the Peloton treadmill is worth every penny. I mean, it is an elite piece of equipment. There's no doubt about that. And it doesn't make your balls numb like the Peloton bike does. So yeah, that's why I can't ride the Peloton bike, because it numbs up the boys. But that's not really the point, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
What?
I don't groove on the gym vibe. I think we had more fun in Sandy when they had like other things like the ball throw and the ropes. That was more fun. But overall, like, I don't know. I just don't, and I can get what I need here
Yeah.
and go on with my life.
Okay, so we're getting tons of advice on off-roading now. Chris Karn says, Salt Flats, take the Jeep down to Little Moab in Utah County and do some off-roading.
Whoop, whoop.
We're going to Big Moab in, I guess, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would go down. There's a ton of trails that I can't wait to get on. The reason that we're going to the Salt Flats is because we need to make content. The Jeep is going to get a massive facelift here in a week. We're putting a 2.5-inch Terraflex lift on it. And we're basically rebuilding the suspension. So we need to create content that is before the lift.
Yeah.
So we're going to roll out there. We're going to drive the Jeep really fast. We're going to have some fun out at the flats. Like I think it's great. And the other reason that I like the Salt Flats is the visuals are spectacular. We'll see how many people are out there. We need to leave it dark 30. Mrs. Monty, you need to get your ass out of bed. We're going to need to leave very early to beat the crowd. But yeah, we're going to have fun. It's going to be a really good time. The Salt Flats are fun. Like,
Yeah.
I think it is. It's cool. But yeah, don't mistake yourself. I am waiting for the snow melt to happen. Like to drive. Like, what's that trail
So many
over
of
to
our
Tooele?
forest roads,
Yeah.
our OHVs are closed due to snow. Like Butterfield Canyon.
Butterfield Canyon. That's it. Yep.
You know, there's so many out towards Midway, out towards the
Well,
backside
Utah
of the
County.
Cottonwoods,
Utah
like-
County's got a ton of
Yeah.
great trails. There's
Yeah.
like, and obviously Moab, and like there's just so many places to off-road in this state, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm excited. Like I said, we're going to Moab in a couple of weeks, and we will be lifted, and it's going to be amazing. I'm really, really looking forward to that. Jeremy Bolton says, I use the mirror sometimes just to make sure I'm doing the lift properly and that my headband is properly placed. Okay.
That's
Okay.
the gym.
Okay. Brandon Butler says, if you are off-roading, Little Moab is where you need to go. We will. Monty, mirrors are good to watch your technique in all exercises. Oh, I mean,
No, to be
we
clear,
use the mirror all the time. I mean the equipment, the mirror, the actual.
the company, the mirror.
Is that tonal?
I think tonal's different. Tonal's. I think. Let me look it up now. See, I thought you guys would know what I was.
You know
talking
that
about.
the mirror. It's
Yeah,
like a
the
thing that hangs
workout,
on the wall, and
it has the
it has
like,
video, and
fly
you do.
arms and pull.
Yeah, you do
weight
classes,
things.
which means
I
you
imagine
don't
you
work
gotta
out.
like really.
Yeah,
that has to be
tonal is different, so
super
tonal-
anchored to the wall.
Dude, tonal and mirror are different. Tonal is a totally different system than mirror.
Okay. I just wonder if anybody outside of Utah actually gives a damn about Zach Wilson and Garcia says. I think they do. Anyway, my point is, I'm excited to go to the Salt Flats this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it'll be cool, like, to get this Jeep out, and because we've been out of town, like we haven't had a lot
The
of
Jeep,
chances
I think
yet.
I've driven the Jeep twice.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of
And
chances
once
to go
was
and
to
do
the
stuff.
grocery store.
Yeah,
So,
It's not a grocery go-getter.
but you got to drive it occasionally. I almost drove it to the gym yesterday because it's been sitting there for like 10 days.
Yeah.
So, we need to get it out of the garage a little bit. So we'll do that this weekend. I think building this Jeep is going to be really fun. Like, I mean, if supply chain cooperates.
it has so far. I feel like it has so far.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we're into. We'll see. There's a lot I want to do to it. I mean, I like we're looking at. I need to get an air compressor before we go down to Moab. I'm not a big crawler fan though. I'm not looking forward to doing like huge crawling or off-roading. I'm more looking forward to.
Once you do it, you will. Once you do a little, you'll be like, oh, that's fun.
I don't mind running stuff over or driving over obstacles. I'm not that much of a stretch my Jeep out, and I'm much more. I love driving fast off road. I mean, we paid almost $2,000 for Fox shocks, reservoir shocks, so that we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the other question is, like 37s versus 35s. Like what tire are we going to wind up in on that? Like on my Tacoma, I had Coopers, but I don't know that that's the tire to use on that. Like there's just so many questions, so much money to spend and so little money had. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
We'll see. It is going to be fun. So anyway, yeah, there you go. Play the music. We have to go. Make sure you shop our affiliate links below. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much. You can find us on Spotify, certainly Apple Podcasts, Amazon, anywhere you get your podcast from. Just search The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show. Subscribe to our podcast. We're just short of 4,000. When we get to 5,000, we're going to give the PS5 away, which will always be fun. So please make sure you subscribe. If you're here right now, give us a thumbs up. We appreciate you. And until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.